Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Dr. J's Prescription for Health. I am your host, Dr. Malea Jensen. I am a family practice physician. I am located in Des Moines, Iowa. We'll hang on here while we're getting everybody situated. Good morning, Diane. Let me see here. I forgot to put on I guess I can't do that now. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Monica and Debbie. Good to have you. This is your opportunity to ask questions. Again, this is not medical advice. It's for information purposes only. We can go over a few things. I always try to prepare a little bit of something. Today, I thought I would talk about weight loss or weight gain if you want to look at it from that perspective. But if you have questions, just put a Q in front of your question and it helps me to see it better. Let me see. Okay. We are live on YouTube and Instagram right now. So let's bring in the concept of, I'm just trying to organize my desk here. Let's bring in the concept of weight loss, or your goal is to lose some fat. You've noticed that over the years, your fat on your body has increased despite maybe any changes in your diet, maybe not any changes in your exercise program. Everything really has stayed status quo, yet you find it difficult to lose fat, and you seem to be gaining more fat on your body. That is very common as we age. But why? First of all, I would have to ask you a serious question. Do you believe that the human body has the capacity to heal itself? Do you have that mindset where you believe in your heart that your body can heal itself? If you make a few changes, good morning, Lucy. If you make changes, yes, Lucy says yes. She believes wholeheartedly that the body has an ability to heal itself. No medicines, no doctors, no nothing. Now, how would you look at weight loss then? Do you believe that the weight loss is your fault, or that your body simply can't do it as you get older? Weight loss is tricky, but I am under the impression from years of practice and from years of just seeing people in public that we definitely have an obesity problem. We definitely have an overweight problem. 60 to 70% of the population is either overweight or obese. 70%. And if we look at that obesity or overweight as someone who is carrying a suitcase with them every single day full of energy, they might tell you that they're not eating as much as they used to, that they're exercising more. They might tell you that they've really given up, don't really watch what they eat, and they don't exercise anymore. But yet they continue to have cravings, they continue to eat, and they continue to gain weight. That scenario will never allow a person to dig into their stores of energy that they have on their body. Like I said, most people are carrying stores of energy in the form of fat on their body that could last days, months, even a year. Aram, is it Aram? Arambula says, what are your thoughts on a 72-hour water fast and intermittent fasting for weight management and detoxing? Thank you. Good question. It ties in with what I'm talking about right now. The only, if we look at fat or obesity or overweight as a hormone problem and not simply just a calories in, calories out problem, then we might be able to see the light when it comes to fat loss. Now, Arambula says, what about for weight management? Does it matter to you when you say weight management? Do you mean fat loss, or do you simply mean a weight on a scale in numbers? Because what if that weight loss or weight management was in the form of losing bone mass, losing muscle mass? So maybe we should redefine our goals of why we would want to do a fast of 72 hours or do intermittent fasting. That would be to start digging in to our fat stores, our energy that's already stored in our body. The minute you break a fast and you eat, now fuel is coming in. I don't know what fuel it is, but fuel is coming in. And many times that fuel will tell the body that you don't need to burn what's already there. I don't know what Arambula's body fat composition is, or if he or she could maintain a 72-hour fast or even intermittent fasting. It all depends. But if you are a typical overweight, obese person, the reason your cells continue to grow or you have an inability to burn that fat is because insulin is too high. Hormones. High insulin prevents fat loss. High insulin prevents fat loss. Even if you intermittently fast and you eat foods that elevate insulin, you will slow the process of fat burning. If you are obese or overweight and you decide on a 72-hour fast, your insulin will slowly come down in that time period. When that insulin comes down, you will start digging into your own fat stores. Even somebody like myself has fat stores that could last me a month, 2 months, 3 months without eating. You cannot, for the most part, start burning your muscle as long as you have fat on your body. That is why when I was bodybuilding, I noticed that, hey, my muscle mass is not really going down, but I'm losing a tremendous amount of fat. You go from a 20% body fat to a 3, 4, 5% body fat when you're bodybuilding. And I did that with a low carb diet. Did I fast? I did not. Would that have helped? Initially, it would have. But once the fat starts coming down and you're at the lower limits, right? Remember, my insulin was down because I was eating a ketogenic diet. So I was constantly in fat burning mode. Maybe not as quickly because I was eating 4, 5, 6 meals a day of protein. Okay? Now, had I made those meals larger, spaced them out, I probably would have went into fat burning quickly or quicker than how I was doing it. But again, you have a coach and, you follow the program, and it was a good program. I did well. I don't do that anymore, but I do follow a low carb diet. I don't think that a low fat, body fat composition person should be fasting as much as they do because they don't have fat stores. And so what's going to happen is they will have a low amount of nutrients coming in that they need in order to build muscle, keep and build bone strength. So looking to, and if you ever, thought about consultation, I could go over this with you. If you want to schedule a consultation with me, you can just email me at IronLadyDoc, IronLadyDoc @AOL.com. Lucy says, so you can lose muscle if you have fat? I have about 5% of fat I want to lose. Would a 48-hour fast help? Lucy, that's a great question. If you have fat on your body, it will dig into those stores first when we are fasting, because we're looking to produce ketones. Your body knows if it is flexible, it wants to use ketones. It's either going to use ketones or it's going to use blood sugar or use sugar that's coming in. Okay? If sugar coming in or energy coming in is low, it's going to dig into your fat stores. That is just one. Are there other variables? Absolutely. If you're not sleeping very well, that can detour you in your fat loss journey. If you're stressed, that can deter your fat loss journey. It's just going to slow it down. It's not like it's going to stop it. So stress and lack of sleep are huge. Now, if we're doing other extracurricular activities like smoking and drinking, of course, that's going to slow down our progress even more. Now, having a 3% body fat or 5% body fat may not be entirely healthy. We have to look at it from a standpoint of longevity. We need some fat on our body. It helps protect us. It helps to produce hormones that we need, like adiponectin. It helps to keep us, if we fall, it's like a cushioning. So there's some things that we need fat for on our body, just not in high amounts. Once insulin steps aside, we can go into fat burning mode, and very nicely. Our body loves that. Sometimes, like Arambula, it could take 72 hours to get into that fat burning mode. It depends on how insulin resistant you are. How high is your insulin? If your insulin is in the 20s, 30s, 40s, it's going to take longer. But as you fast, you're going to find that the clarity of your thinking improves, your energy improves, because you are no longer looking for that quick fix. You're no longer looking for that next dopamine hit. You see, most of us eat because of the clock or because of our impression of what hunger is. Hunger, if it's true hunger, can and will go away within a half an hour if you ignore that cycle. But is it truly hunger, or is it a craving for a dopamine hit? And I would argue that 70% of the population who is overweight, over half, let's just say 75% of the 70%, eat because of a craving. And they will choose the quick fix, the quick energy source, which of course is carbohydrates. When we choose an ultra-processed or processed energy source, that will automatically spike glucose, which will spike insulin. And when insulin is high, you cannot go into fat burning. So you would constantly need a supply of this fast-acting dopamine hit. It is nothing to do with willpower, but it has everything to do with hormones and neurotransmitters, our chemicals in our brain. And as long as we continue to feed them, they will continue to get and receive positive results from that. As you gain weight, your brain thinks this is great because it loves the dopamine hit. It loves the drug. It craves the drug. You are not hungry. The craving wants a dopamine hit. And so once you realize that and you turn the tables on your cravings, you ignore them. They will go away. And over time, once your body becomes fat adapted, you will start using your own fuel as an energy source. But the minute you eat something, you'll stop using your energy source because your body knows that something else just came in. If we don't curb our meals, or if we're eating a bunch of snacks, that insulin level never has a chance to go down. Hopefully, this is making sense. Lucy says, I'm at 30% and want to be at 25%. That is a great goal. I commend you for wanting to lose excess body fat because there's no reason. The average female carries about 35% body fat. The average male, will carry around 20 to 25. Both of these are too high. We don't need them. We are acting as if we're never going to get food again, and we will store excess fat. Now, you might think that calories in and calories out is in your best interest. And I would say, initially, if you go from 2,000 calories to 1,000 calories, you could lose some weight. But you will definitely be hungry. Calories in, calories out. If it's the wrong calories that you're calling a calorie, which only can be measured with a bomb calorimeter, but your idea of calories as fuel depends on what they do to the hormones. Without insulin, the energy cannot be stored. If insulin is high and there's no energy available, you won't grow fat cells. Even if insulin is high, you have to have an energy source, right? You have to have a calorie. But as we adapt and you are low carb, there's not going to be those spikes of glucose, which spikes insulin. Insulin, over 10, a person consistently over 10, 11, 12, somewhere in there, can never lose body fat. It will be next to impossible. And it will test that person. The reason being is the energy that they did choose when they decided to eat spiked blood sugar, which spiked insulin. So the idea is to get into ketosis. Now, the fastest and easiest way to get into ketosis, of course, is fasting. But a low-carb diet is also a very good way, yet not as fast, to start burning fat. If you're okay with a slower process, then you could go with simply a ketogenic diet. Low carb. A low carb diet is 20 grams or less. 20 grams of carbohydrates or less. With this idea in mind, people will say, but don't calories count? And I think that they don't, because you likely will not overeat eggs. You likely will not overeat steak. But why is it that you could eat steak or eggs and then you say you're full, but yet you will eat a dessert? You will consume bread or pasta or even cereal after just stating that you're full. Well, you're full of nutrient density foods. You're not full of empty nutrient things, which are only spiking your dopamine. It's giving you the hit. And you really have to actually go no contact with your carbohydrates. I apologize. No bark. No bark. There was probably a leaf blowing in the yard. That's what triggers dachshunds to bark, you know. You guys, I am live on YouTube and Instagram, and we probably will not entertain any questions over on YouTube unless I happen to notice, but there is a lot of riffraff over on YouTube. So if you would want to join over on Instagram, the Instagrammers are very polite and are showing very good questions. Let me see. Oh, Chat with Lucy says, good morning, your face is glowing beautifully. Yes, I actually just put my, I worked out and then I put my, I washed my face and put my morning routine on. Melanie says, fasting also supports autophagy, which is cell renewal. It does, fasting does. I would argue that actually being in a ketosis also induces autophagy. Maybe not as quickly as fasting, but it still will allow autophagy to improve. The thing is, you guys want to know what autophagy is. I can see that. Autophagy, I always look at it as maid service. That when you're in a hotel room, the maid comes in and cleans up all the riffraff, cleans it all up, straightens everything out, and you're good for another day, so to speak, until they come back again or you check out. Autophagy is house cleaning. Autophagy helps the body get rid of waste, get rid of cells that are maybe old and not working as well. And so autophagy is very good. The reason we don't have as much autophagy going on in today's modern world is because we're eating all the time. We've been told to eat small, frequent meals. We've been told to eat 3 meals with snacks in between. And we've gotten to the place where we are today with extreme amounts of chronic diseases, whether it be high cholesterol, if you think that's a disease, or maybe it's a symptom of something else, high blood pressure, stroke, heart disease, diabetes, dementias, Parkinson's. Those diseases of prosperity, of eating, have increased in modern days because of what we've been told to do. I mean, even if you look at prestigious websites with 3-letter names, 3-letter agencies, even if you have diabetes, they will tell you that you can dose your medications, i.e. your insulin, around what you eat, and everything will be fine because they measure diabetes as far as blood sugar is concerned or A1C is concerned, but not in the presence of insulin. They do not measure insulin, and they don't recommend that you check insulin. Because had you checked insulin and you know what an optimal insulin level is, between 3 and 5 or 6, you're not going to know that your metabolic health is dwindling until it's too late. And then your doctor or the 3-letter agency will tell you that it's simply a process of normal aging. It is not. It is not normal to have chronic diseases as we age. It's not normal to have diabetes as we age. Your pancreas doesn't just get so old at a certain point that it stops making insulin. So we have to consider the fact that what we're putting in our body is a direct result of the chronic diseases that we have right now. When everything is going as planned and insulin is coming down, things that help with even muscle building, if you're exercising, you're eating enough protein, you're getting enough fat. Guess what hormone goes up when insulin goes down? Growth hormone. Growth hormone is also an anabolic hormone. Insulin's anabolic. Insulin will push energy, carbohydrates, into fat cells. It'll push energy into muscle cells, although muscle doesn't necessarily need insulin. It can actually take up glucose without insulin. But the fact still remains that our goal is simply not to lose weight on a scale, but to lose fat. It's the fat that is a problem, especially when that fat is visceral fat or deep subcutaneous fat. Those are dangerous fats to have on our body. Most everyone who has diabetes will have visceral fat, meaning organ fat, meaning liver fat, meaning heart fat, pancreas fat, kidney fat. Those are dangerous fats. And it's preventing you, with high insulin, it's preventing you from burning that fat. In fact, if you went in a fasted state, your visceral fat would probably be the fastest to burn. Imagine that. So I just need you to, or I encourage you to stop and think about what your goals are. You know, if it's simply just weight loss, you know, go ahead, do the calories in, calories out. So limit your calories, limit them to 500, and go exercise. I mean, really exercise, and see how long you can do that. If your goal is to lose weight, to get on the scale, to get on in a wrestling match, you got to make weight, then stopping eating or limiting your calories and over-exercising will do the trick. But I doubt, and I think you know this wholeheartedly if you admit it to yourself, the minute you limit your calories like that, you will get hungry. And hunger will win 99% of the time. And when you fight that hunger, you will go for the cravings. And the cravings are your dopamine hit. If you were to say, I'm hungry, I'm going to eat steak or eggs or chicken or fish, that's different. But that doesn't spike your craving or fix your craving, which spikes dopamine. Once you get into a pattern where you are not spiking the dopamine all the time, it'll calm down and your cravings get less and less and less. It's a bit like going no contact with your carbohydrates, going no contact with your stress, going no contact with your lack of sleep. You need to change the scenarios that you're living in. And at first, it's going to be difficult. And at first, it's going to be like you want to give up. But I encourage you to stay the course, to maintain, because you can do it. I've seen it happen. I've seen people maintain the course for 3, 4, 5 years or more. I mean, many of you know that there are carnivores or ketovores or ketotic diet people out there who've been doing it for years and years and years. Why? Because they found that their energy is great. They found that their mind function, their cognition is good, their clarity is better. They might sleep better. Their exercise is better. Their relationships are better. If I was in an insulin resistant state, if you are in an insulin resistant state and you're constantly getting your dopamine from food, how do you think that affects your relationships? Let me give you an idea. It negatively affects them because usually the dopamine hit that you get from your relationship, husband, wife, friend, coworker, other family members, is not as great as the dopamine hit that you likely get from your ultra-processed or processed food, your sugar hit. that takes the cake, so to speak. It will be your relationships will suffer because your thoughts are not on them, not on the relationship. They're on your next dopamine hit from your food because of your craving. Again, once you put that craving on the back burner, and as you remain either fasted or low carb or both, that signal is less and less and less, and easier and easier and easier to resist. You become stronger. You are a stronger person that is not manipulated by food. Right now, many of you who struggle are manipulated by food. You hear noise, you hear talking. That is a craving for your drug. Let the craving pass. Don't have cues in your home or cues at work or cues in your car or cues anywhere where that is going to trigger you because just the sight of something like that could trigger you. And you need to avoid that, i.e., you go no contact with that trigger. And that signal gets less and less and less because right now you are manipulated because of chemicals in your brain, not really because of your willpower. Amory says, I'm sorry if I really slaughter you guys' names. I'm just going, started fasting 1 year ago, currently 65 kilos, trying to gain some weight. So increase my daily calorie intake to from 2,700 to 2,800. No less and not more, but I still don't eat on Saturday and Sunday. Okay. Do you have a question in there? If I did, I missed it. Been feeling full of energy and never been sick since I started this routine. Okay. Oh, went from 1,700 to 2,800. Okay. J.M. Minnick says that's a great analogy. Oh, you're welcome. I was just scrolling some shorts and then I found her account. She has great knowledge. Hopefully, are you referring to me? If yes, I appreciate that. Thank you. Again, once insulin is allowed to step aside, our body can naturally transition into a fat burning mode. You can either do this through fasting, you could do it intermittent fasting, you could do long fasts. Again, it depends on how much energy you have stored. Once your body starts transitioning into fat burning, you will use ketones as your energy source. Your brain loves ketones. Your heart loves ketones. Ketone is worth as many calories as a carbohydrate, 4 calories. So you're getting enough calories when you are burning ketones. Ketones are an energy source. When you expel ketones, either through your breath or through your urine, you are losing weight, so to speak, but you're allowing your body to use fuel that's on your body instead of using fuel that's coming in through your mouth. Susan says, what's the best way to stay energized when fasting? Susan, if you have high insulin and you are insulin resistant, this is a very common question from somebody who can't stay energized because they are still in sugar burning mode. And so once you get past that, Susan might need to go 72 hours or more to get her 30 insulin down because her body is still in sugar burning mode. Once she adapts out of or transitions out of sugar burning mode and into ketosis, fat burning mode, her cognition and her clarity and her energy will go up. Okay? Lucy says, that's a huge jump in calories, 1,000 calories. If she is trying to put on weight, why would someone fast over the weekend just for cellular health? Yeah, I don't know. And Lucy, I don't know what, they didn't have a real question. So I think they were just stating what is working for them, Lucy. And this brings the point to light as everybody's body is different. And Lucy, your body might need 18, 19, 2,000 calories to thrive. Those calories, when keeping insulin levels low, will get you to the spot where you want to be at 25% body fat. Changing up your exercise routine helps. If you are doing the exact same routine over time, your body will accommodate to that. And it doesn't like to break homeostasis, so to speak, okay? You're like a hibernating bear. The hibernating bear will say, I don't know when I'm gonna get my next meal. And it appears that whoever's body I'm in is they're trying to over-exercise me. So when they're over-exercising or just doing the exact same things, I can get used to that. I know exactly how many calories I need or how much energy I need in order to survive. So your body goes into just simply survival mode, not thriving mode. My body that is fat adapted and using your own stores is a body that is very efficient. It doesn't need an outside source to feed it energy because it has it. Now, once you get down to a body fat level that you have accommodated, you could say, you know what, I want to add in a few of those non-essential carbohydrates. Okay, but you have to know that anytime your blood sugar goes up, your insulin will go up. And if you are still in an insulin resistant mode, meaning hyperinsulinemic, your insulin might be 8 and you're hyperinsulinemic, you're going to gain body fat. When you add the combinations of fat and carbohydrates, you will be higher in fat content. Okay? That is what processed foods are. They're very palatable. They don't cause satiated feeling. They increase your cravings, your dopamine cravings. And so you will choose them over and over and over again. Okay? Lucy, so Amarit says, because it's been my regular routine since I started, so I didn't want to quit it. If you are doing well and you feel great and your energy is up and you're sleeping and you're skipping down the street singing happy songs, then maybe that is where you found your thrive button. That's where you thrive the best, at 2,800 calories. Okay? That's great. Thank you for sharing all that. Go lay down. Yep, Lucy, exactly. Amarit, if it's working for you, great. That's great. Sam says, don't you need insulin sensitivity for growth hormone and muscle growth? Exactly. Remember, insulin sensitivity is not insulin resistant. Insulin resistant is a state of insulin resistance itself and hyperinsulinemia. So when we have hyperinsulinemia, that is when growth hormone comes down. But if insulin is in the optimal range, growth hormone goes up. That is the difference. So yes, an insulin sensitive individual, their growth hormone is being secreted or not being inhibited as much as an insulin resistant person? That was a good question. Thank you. Can you talk about fat fasting? A lot of people are afraid to fast. So what is your question in regards to fat fasting? I think it's just like anything else, like water fasting. So even dry fasting is a fasting. I'm guessing, are saying, I'm only going to eat fat. So you're maybe going to eat sticks of butter, or you're just going to eat tablespoons of olive oil, or you're just going to eat fat. You're going to eat fat trimmings off of meat, and that's all you're going to eat. Is that what you're asking? Is a type of fat fasting? And what exactly is the question? Josh asked, does water fasting fix everything? No. No bark. Hello from Istanbul. Well, hello from Iowa. Okay. Okay, here's a question. What is the difference between brown fat and white fat, and can you change them? I get this question a lot, and it's a very valid question. Brown fat is highly prevalent in infants. They have a lot of brown fat. It's very, very, very metabolically active. And it's metabolically active because of the amount of mitochondria that brown fat has. As we age and we grow up to adults, we have less and less brown fat. Brown fat is usually, as an adult, is situated in areas in our neck and our upper chest area. Maybe for a reason. God says, hey, we need, that metabolically active type fat on our chest and neck. Maybe, just maybe, I don't know, but maybe it's to keep this area warm, keep our heart warm, keep our blood warm, that goes up into our neck and then into our brain. All over our body, we have muscles that help to contract and warm our body, but our brain doesn't have muscles. So if we had cold blood going up there, is it as good as, the warmest blood that's around our heart and our neck? Maybe not. So maybe that's why we have it. I don't know. I would have to ask God on that, why he made it that way. But yeah, it could be from this area is warming our blood. But this is where it's stationed as we become older. Can we change white fat to brown fat? Yes. There have been studies that show that cold plunges increase that transition of white fat to brown fat. Do you get brown fat from white fat? Likely not. Remember that white fat is not metabolically active at all. And brown fat is like 10 times more metabolically active than white fat. But what if we could get some beige fat from cold plunging or cold exposure? Yes, that is a possibility. Maybe even cold hot exposure. Maybe that would help convert or to transition some of that white fat into beige fat. Beige fat, not quite brown, but more metabolically active than white fat. Beige fat is about 3 times metabolically active as white fat. Not the 10 times of brown fat, but still more metabolically active. What else gets our body into a more metabolically active fat? Ketosis. Simple active ketosis will help. Hold, please. Tootsie! Go lay down. No bark. I apologize. She hasn't done this for a long time. I could put her in the kennel, but I don't want to. And so hopefully you will bear with me with her watching the leaves blow outside. Okay, I'm trying to back up here. Did everybody get the answer or get that understand with the white fat, beige fat, brown fat? That's always a good question. I like that. You also have to keep in mind that why we don't have as much brown fat when we're adults is because we need white fat, especially for fertile female. A fertile female needs white fat. Why? Because white fat has leptin in it. And you cannot get pregnant without leptin. I know, fun fact, right? So leptin helps with fertility. So if you have a female that has very, very low leptin, they're thin, or they might have a genetic disorder. I'd have to look up which genetic disorder that is of leptin deficiency or lack of production of leptin. But there is such a thing. And so these women who are, have a little more body fat will release leptin or produce leptin, and leptin helps with fertility. If we were to have brown fat, then we would have no fertile women. That's why God made that transition. I chalk this up to the hands of God. Brown fat does not have leptin. Brown fat, metabolically active. There's a reason for brown fat, and it's to produce heat. That is its main goal, produce heat. Okay? Ma'am, I wanted to, hi, bud. You can't see him, but Talo's right here. He comes over and says hi. You go lay down. Go lay down. Do you want to say hi to everybody? Oh, he's 16 pounds of pure enjoyment. He's got his leg up. Oh, there we go. Okay, this is Talo, you guys. He's not going to sit here for long. He just needs a hug. He needs a hug. So let's read this question here. Let's bring this a little closer. Ma'am, I wanted to ask something. I feel full of energy when go in nature and do meditation, even when I'm fasting for days. I haven't slept or even something. On the other hand, when I'm full, I feel lazy and less energetic. Good, then you know your body. Lucy asks, what do you eat? And Amarit says, it's like whenever I eat high carb food, I feel lazy and sleepy. Okay, well, that's insulin. Do you want to get down? Did you just want to say hi? Did you just want to say hi? You're such a good boy. You're a good boy. He's a good boy. Okay. All right, you get down, okay? There we go. All right. Amarit says, I'm mostly eating vegetables because I'm a vegan. Okay. You're getting, earlier you said you eat 2,800 calories. You're eating 2,800 calories of vegetables? I'm not sure I can figure that one out. Make that one make sense that you can eat 2,800 calories of vegetables. Explain. I'd like to hear that. Lucy says, well, that is a problem. High carb will do that. Why don't you try not eating any carbs and see how you feel? But Lucy, the person you're speaking to, is a vegan, okay? And, that vegan is going to have trouble eating no carbs because that is what a vegan diet is, okay? That is going to be a difficult chore. So until the person wants to, make a change, that's going to be a problem, okay? You know, I'm curious, Amrit, what is your body fat what is your body fat composition? Right, Lucy. Lucy is a carnivore and says she never feels lethargic. So Amrit is a vegan and says the only time they feel energetic is when they have no food. Oh, geez. I've heard other people say that about dogs. Virginia says, I thought Tootsie saw a squirrel. Well, my little squirrel is usually in the backyard, not in the front yard. We have leaves right now in the front yard. They blow and they stir Tootsie to yap, yap, yap. I mean, if anybody from a mile away is walking and she can see them, she will bark at them too. It's just something that you have to live with when you have. So if I shift to mean-based diet, will I feel more energetic? Again, what is a meat-based diet? Oh, okay, a meat-based diet. If I shift to meat-based diet, will I feel, I don't know, Amrit, until you do that. No one who's listening right here could predict how you, Amrit, are going to do on a meat-based diet as far as energy is concerned. Many people who are listening right now will say that they are on a meat-based diet. But if you are saying, I'm going to base my diet on meat, I'm going to eat steak, but I'm also going to eat some bread and pasta and cereal and rice and bread and all these things, that is not going to help you in any way. Okay? You're putting non-nutrients in with a very nutrient-dense meal. Those other things that you add to it will raise blood sugar, which will raise insulin, and that will cause energy to be stored in the form of fat. And you will remain lethargic. There might be some other things going on that is causing your lethargy and your fatigue. And again, I offer, if you want to do a consult with me, just email me at IronLadyDoc@AOL.com and we can go over everything. Your diet, your sleep, your medications, your past medical history, your family history, your exercise routine, all of that. We can go over all of it, okay? Right. Doubtful 2,800 calories of simply eating vegetables. I agree. Probably lots of processed foods, says 9GP. Does PCOS cause gluten allergy? No. But what causes PCOS and problems with gluten are probably the exact same things. It's root cause. Sam says, what is the difference between drinking your calories and eating them? Give me an example. You're going to drink your calories, as in a protein shake, or, you're going to, anytime you drink your calories, they're processed. If you're talking about protein shakes versus a steak, you will get more benefit nutrition-wise from eating a whole food versus drinking them, which if it is what I don't know what you're referring to. If you're talking about a protein shake, those rush of amino acids that are denatured, they're not really, they're not bound. They're just free, usually just free floating amino acids with a whole bunch of other crap added to it, for nutritional value, because you've processed something, you have to fortify it now. Anyway, that way of eating is going to spike amino acids, and those amino acids will spike blood sugar. So your chances of gaining weight or gaining fat weight is much higher from drinking your calories than from consuming them in the whole form. A steak or eggs versus a protein shake. Gaming. Good point. Sam says, so I shouldn't have rice with my chicken breast. I was told that it's a good combination. I was lied to. Well, you weren't lied to. The person who told you that said it was a great combination. That's not a lie. Should you have rice with your chicken? I guess that is up to you. If you want to consume a plant that grows in an area of a ton of drainage where you have high amounts of heavy metals, arsenic and cadmium and things that grow in the soil from runoff, rice would be a great choice. Just saying, I mean, it's a great choice if you want heavy metal toxicity. And what is the nutritional value of the rice? In fact, when it comes right down to it, what nutritional value? You go lay down. Go lay down. What is the nutritional value of your chicken breast? Why would you choose chicken? Do I eat chicken sometimes? Absolutely, sometimes. But from a nutritional density point of view, I'm going to consume nutrient-dense ruminant animals versus chicken. But no, Sam, I don't think you were lied to at all. That person who told you that was wholeheartedly telling you that it's a great combination. That's what you just said, a good combination. Who doesn't like chicken and rice? Modest glow, it sounds like you need to see your dermatologist. Happy Gardener says, thank you, you make so much sense. You're very welcome. 1910 says, thank you very much for the question, Sam, and explanation, very helpful. Good. Okay. Did I miss anything? I am live over here on Instagram and YouTube. So if you guys have questions, you know that the rice question, Sam, it got me going on the sugar diet. It's, you know, recently you might have heard about the sugar diet. I think it hit its fame and now it's trickling off, but it reminds me of the rice diet, you know, back in the 1930s, when Kempner, I believe it's Kempner, Kempner, when Kempner, back in the 1930s had this, what he called the rice diet, Walter Kempner. I believe he was from Duke University. And his diet was 90% carbs, so 90% rice, 10% fat, or yeah, maybe 95.5. I think it was 5% fat, 5% protein. So basically this rice diet, which was not all rice, I believe, okay, came from maybe some fruit juices, the rice, maybe even added sugar, like this sugar diet. But basically what it did was it did restrict calories. And it did restrict sodium. And maybe the goal was, hey, the blood pressure went down, and so all is good. Did the blood pressure go down? Was that because of the calorie restriction? Or was that because the, you know, when we, was the, or the sodium was being restricted? Now, I think anytime we have high insulin, it's going to be very difficult to lower blood pressure. That is usually the most common reason for high blood pressure is high insulin. You lower insulin and your blood pressure naturally comes down. That's why I don't consider high blood pressure a disease state. It's a symptom. It's a symptom of something else going on metabolically in your diet, and the doctors don't seem to talk to you about it. They just give you a pill. That's really what's wrong with our healthcare system now. It's basically you go to the doctor, they do a diagnostic test, a blood test, a cardiac score. They do a test, they make a diagnosis, and they give you a treatment protocol of a medication. Rarely does a doctor talk about your diet, your exercise, your sleep, your work, your relationships. They don't have time for that. They got 5 or 10 minutes with you. And, you know, that's a problem. It's much, much easier for them to really not ask you. You know, we used to joke when we were in residency, they would, there was these little mnemonics, and one would be O, OBTW. And we refer to it as, oh, by the way. So if we were to open up or to have an open-ended question at the end when we're trying to get out the door, you know, your hand's on the door handle, you're trying to get out the door, and you say, if there's no further questions, or do you have any other questions? We would ask, open-ended. Oh boy. The oh, by the ways. We called them the oh, by the ways. They came in for their sore throat, and you'll say, because you're polite, doctor will say, are there any further questions? And you'll get the oh, by the ways. You know what? I've been having a lot of abdominal pain for the past 2 to 3 weeks, and I've got diarrhea. That is an oh, by the way. Usually those people are rescheduled. They're rescheduled. They have to be rescheduled. If the doctor entertained the oh, by the ways, they would be behind. And when it's multiple things that the doctor is talking about, yes, you can charge more, but there's just to a limit to how much you can charge. And so if they rescheduled that patient, they could make a level 3 twice instead of a level 4. 2 level 3s over 2 different visits is much higher from a reimbursement standpoint. Just saying. Okay. I'm looking through any questions. I don't understand the insulin resistant question. I think you're just making a statement. You're not asking a question. Yep. Okay. That's fine. So yeah, the rice diet, the sugar diet, the Sam question in regards to being lied to. I don't think it's unheard of. We can feel, you go lay down. You go lay down. All right, you guys, this is your opportunity to ask questions. Everybody's sitting. Ruth says, what are your thoughts on using a rebounder? Does this help prevent osteoporosis? That's a good question. I don't know. Ruth, it would be a great experiment that you would have gotten a DEXA scan as a baseline, started doing the rebounder, and then rechecked your DEXA scan a year or 2 years later. Weight-bearing exercises, resistance training exercises improve bone strength or bone density more than anything else. If you are not weight-bearing, and a rebounders were not really weight-bearing, although you do hit a stable, it's hard to say, Ruth. You know, I'd have to think through this, but resistance training and weight-bearing exercises are going to be a bigger bang for your buck. But not just exercises improves osteoporosis. Your diet has to be intact. You know, the bones need protein. And if you are not eating nutritionally dense protein in the form of animal fats and proteins, then your risk of osteoporosis is much higher. If anything that you have is sucking the calcium out of your bones and teeth and putting it into your bloodstream, that can lead to osteoporosis. What am I referring to? Something like parathyroid tumor. So look at a calcium level. Something that triggers me on a calcium level on a CMP, on a complete metabolic profile, is when the calcium level goes above 10. That triggers me, or it sends me a red flag, even though the reference range could go up to 10.5. If I see a patient who is got a calcium level of 10, 10.1, 10.2, I'm going to get an intact parathyroid hormone on that person. I have picked up more parathyroid tumors, adenomas, that it's unbelievable. And that these are the people who have problems with their teeth degenerating, their bones degenerating. It's amazing. usually I have found these people in line as a diabetic, in line with having high blood pressure, in line with being at risk of coronary artery disease. These are the people who I see having low bone density. Remember, density and strength are different. Okay. Getting a DEXA scan isn't always as accurate as you might think. We got to, strength and density are not the same thing. You could have dense bones and they're not very strong. Okay. 1910 says, I'm fairly new to finding you. Thank you for joining in. I appreciate that. Do you have any book recommendations for insulin resistance or diet to lose and prevent disease in a way that explains it simply? A non-diabetic. Thank you. Oh boy, I've read a lot of books. One that jumps out at me, and I don't know how complicated it's going to be for you, 1910, but there's a book by Ben Bikman, Bikman. It's called Why We Get Sick. It talks a lot about insulin resistance. There are other doctors or other, I don't want to call them experts. What is the term for it? There are other people who write books like Jason Fung, Dr. Jason Fung. He writes a book and he talks a lot about insulin resistance. He attacks insulin resistance from a different perspective. He attacks insulin resistance from a fasting state. Even Dr. Jamnatis, a cardiologist, attacks insulin resistance via a fasting mechanism. So there's a lot of doctors who believe in fasting. It's not that I don't believe in fasting, but we just have to look at the whole body and say, hey, is this fasting healthy for you, or should we choose a different way? Should we simply go keto? But insulin resistance, in a nutshell, is two things. Insulin resistance is hyperinsulinemia, high insulin in the blood. Insulin goes up when sugar goes up in our bloodstream. Okay? Are there things that increase sugar in our bloodstream besides simply eating it? Yes. That's where the sleep comes in, and the stress comes in, and the cortisol and the glucagon. All of that plays a role. Those are all changing hormones in our body. Everything talks to each other. Every hormone talks to each other. They're not found in isolation. But insulin is a major propagator of all other hormones when they're talking to each other. So insulin resistance is just when it's working on a fat cell and insulin is high. So insulin resistance is insulin resistance itself, meaning I think it's an insulin problem versus a cell problem. The insulin is not working very well. If insulin was working well, the cells would say, come on in, energy. But the cells are too full. If you've ever seen a too fat cell, it put the brakes on taking in any more energy. It says it's full. And so insulin doesn't like to listen. It likes to say, but I have all this energy out here in the bloodstream, i.e. glucose. It's got to go somewhere. There's no muscle to take it up, or there is some muscle, but it's full. You fat cell are the only one that can take it up. Yeah, but I'm full. Well, then there's got to be more fat cells. Okay? When a fat cell gets too fat, it doesn't want to take in more energy. And if you force it, it's going to leak something out in order to take in that energy. Let me give you an example. And I know that you said that you're not diabetic, but let's say that you are a diabetic. Let's say that you're a type 2 diabetic. Okay? If you're insulin resistant, by the way, you are a diabetic. It's just not diagnosed by your doctor. They just don't know how to early diagnose it. But insulin resistance or type 2 diabetes will, at some point, you'll need to go on medications. And those medications help to lower blood sugar. They don't do anything with your insulin level, okay? So that's why a diabetic who is controlled from a blood sugar standpoint could continue to get fat, because the fat cells are growing because of the type of energy you give them. A fat cell can't get fat unless insulin is present. If you're a diabetic and you fasted or you went carb-free, no carb, your insulin's gonna go down. You don't need as much insulin, or excuse me, as much medicine. Let's just call it oral medications at this point. But those oral medications are gonna stop working. Metformin, by its very nature, lowers blood sugar, right? By forcing the doors on the cell of, like fat cells or even muscle cells, to open up, even though the fat cell or the muscle cell is full. Metformin will drive, the doctor uses metformin to lower blood sugar, not to fix your metabolic problem. You will continue to have a metabolic problem because of what you choose to eat. If you choose to eat carbohydrates, blood sugar will continue to go up, forcing insulin to be secreted from the pancreas, beta cells. Eventually, the pancreatic beta cells cannot produce enough insulin. Your oral medications are not working. Doctor is going to give you insulin now, because I'm only treating blood sugar levels. I'm not treating your resistance. I don't even know what it is. Your cells won't take in any more. They're resistant. They don't want any more energy. So I'm going to have to force it. I'm going to give you metformin. I'm going to give you insulin. But more and more insulin is not going to make those cells take up any more energy. They're full. They're going to leak out more. When they leak out, they're going to leak out fatty acids. They're going to leak out cytokines and all these inflammatory markers and make you worse and worse and worse, which makes you more and more insulin resistant, which is requiring you more and more insulin. I have had people come to me on 90 units a day of insulin. Are you kidding me? I said, what did your doctor do? Oh yeah, they couldn't control my blood sugars, so they kept upping my dose. Well, they couldn't control your blood sugars because your blood sugars were due to you. Your consumption of raising blood sugars. And so your cells were resistant. They didn't want any more. It took more and more insulin to force it in. So you had to protect it. You have to look at insulin resistance in a different way. Why don't you look at insulin resistance as a protective measure? Because if the fat cells continue to get fatter, you will eventually die. Because your body will be so inflamed. Because as the fat cells get bigger and bigger and bigger, they get pushed away from a blood source. They will die. When they die, everything in the contents will be released into your body. You have tons and tons of toxins. And over time, you will have toxic overload and you will pass away. And we will call that natural aging. You just aged. You had a bad disease and you aged, and there was nothing else we could do. We gave you every medicine we could, without talking about your diet, your exercise, your sleep, your relationship. None of that. Your stress, your job, none of it. That's why I think it's important for you guys to be your own advocate. If we continue to trust the lack of knowledge of our doctors, we are going to continue to have chronic diseases. That's why I think you guys listen to me or people like me, because I'm trying to get you guys to open up your brains and start thinking for yourself instead of relying on a person who wears or not wears a white coat, who has a two-letter name, two letters behind their name, MD, DO, NP, whatever it is. You're going to rely on that person, that the information they were given in medical school, nurse practitioner school, PA school, who was that information given by? If you guys don't know that answer, it's really, really obvious because we've all been trained the exact same way. Nutritionists have been trained the exact same way by the exact same people. Medical school, PA school, NP school, all the schools, same curriculum, same ideas, same underwriters of the curriculum. There's no real difference between a DO and an MD, except for the location of the school. And a little bit of extra training that DOs get in manipulated medicine. There's no difference. The curriculum is the same. The boards are the same. The questions are the same. And they will get us, doctors, going down a certain path that they want us to go down. And that's to make a diagnosis after using a diagnostic test, and then give you a treatment. And we pat ourselves on the back and we get kudos by the powers of that be, by your intelligence. You made a great diagnosis, doctor, and you gave a great treatment. You, doctor, are following protocol. You're following the guidelines. You have high blood pressure over 130/80, and you gave first-line treatment ACE inhibitor. You did very well. And so when you follow the guidelines, then there's no repercussions. Does the patient get healthier? Doubtful. They continue with their blood pressure because it will continue to get worse and they'll need a higher dose. Well, doctor is good at writing higher doses. I mean, that's easy. Your blood pressure is still not controllable. Here's your higher dose. I mean, how hard is that? What is causing the higher dose? Oh, you got diabetes? You have insulin resistance? Oh, your insulin level is 20? Well, you know what? You really should start watching your diet. What do you mean watching it? Watching as it comes in? What is raising insulin? Well, we don't really check insulin. That's not really necessary. You don't have diabetes, or you have diabetes. Here's your medicine. You guys, this is why it's very important that you become educated. Yes, one of the first books I read was, Ben Bickman's Why We Get Sick. I believe one of the first books that I ever read was by Nina Teacoltz, and it was on fat. I was in a stage in my life where I was wondering, is it possible that coronary artery disease is not caused by high LDL? And when I read that book and checked in on some of the links that were provided in that book by Nina Teacoltz, Teicholz, I believe, it was very eye-opening. And I would have never gone down that route had it not been for some patients who helped me open up my eyes that there could be something else. And so I think I'll probably talk about that on Stop and Think Thursday next week. If I do it, I think isn't Thursday, that doesn't matter if it's Thanksgiving or not. That doesn't matter. I can still do a reel, but Stop and Think Thursday is, let's stop and think about something and just ask questions like, what if insulin resistance was a protective mechanism in our body? If the cells were continuing to grow and they did not become insulin resistant, what is the ramifications? High inflammation, just a lot of problems going on in our body, sickness, cancer development. And then again, Stop and Think Thursday, another topic. What if a cancer tumor was a protective mechanism? I mean, who would have thought? I mean, we get the idea as cancer, a tumor, being the worst case scenario, well, you're going to die. We got to yank that tumor out of here. We got to give chemo and radiation and kill it. When that tumor, what if it was a protective mechanism to wall off toxins in your body? It was a protective mechanism. It was meant to be there. Your body was doing the natural thing to do in order to protect it from all of the toxins taking over your body and you die right now. What if you allowed the tumor to shrink on its own because you eliminated the toxins? And in all reality, what are those cancer cells, because they're alive, right? What are they eating? What makes them survive? All cells need an energy source, right? All cells need some sort of an energy to get their workings, right? Your house can't function without some sort of energy source. Electricity, gas, firewood, it needs, so your house is a cell, it needs an energy source to keep it going. Your cells, every cell needs an energy source. Glucose, ketones, fat, it needs an energy source. The mitochondria need to produce energy for you to do your thing, to thrive. So what feeds cancer cells? What's their energy source? Well, back in the day when Warburg was studying cancer, he said that cancer cells could live even without oxygen. They didn't even need oxygen to work. They could live in a no oxygen state, even in the presence of oxygen. They don't need oxygen. But what if I gave them oxygen? And what if I changed the pH of our body? What if they like acid and we give them alkaline? Or what if they like alkaline and we gave them acid? What if cancer loves sugar? What if cancer loves certain proteins? What if cancer loved iron? What about all these things that we don't talk about? Yet we will go to the doctor and they will say, we need to kill the cancer cell at all costs. Well, you're not only killing your cancer cell, but you're killing all of your good cells, or so to speak, whatever good cells you had. What caused the cancer in the first place? Why are some people more susceptible to cancer than others? What is it about their diet or their environment? Are they in a toxic environment with high iron? Have they been eating, well, let me throw this one out there. What if they've been consuming low amounts of copper? If we have low copper, we have high iron. And that iron is stored away. It's locked up in the presence of low copper. And so that iron in the tissues, then in the cells, causes oxidation. And what if cancer cells, whether it be a parasite, a virus, a bacteria, a fungus, they are alive and need to eat something. What if they love iron? What if they love the iron that's trapped in your cells, in your tissues? Well, how did I get iron trapping? Good question. Likely decades and decades of consuming iron that you can't really absorb and use. And what would that be? Non-heme iron. Non-heme iron, you can't maybe absorb maybe 3% of it. It is a food. It's a food for lots of things. You have likely been consuming processed and ultra-processed foods your whole life. And it started as an infant. When you did not breastfeed, you were bottle fed, something like Infamil or some other formula that was high amounts of iron, fortified iron, synthetic non-heme iron that built up over time in your body. and locked itself away in organs like your liver and your thyroid and your eyes and your skin and your pancreas and your kidneys, all your organs. But how did that all occur? Yes, you were consuming it, but what if your lack of copper also contributed that? Because when you lack copper, it drives liver to store iron. When you lack copper, hepcidin, which is a protein from the liver, goes up. Hepcidin, however you want to pronounce it, Hepcidin or din, hepcidin. It goes up. And when hepcidin goes up, it blocks the transport mechanism of iron inside the cell to iron outside the cell. That little transport mechanism is called ferroportin. Ferro, iron, portin, transporter, ferroportin. All of this occurred because of low copper? Could well be. If you look in people who have iron overload, if you truly look, doctor, if you know how to look, doctor, you could find that your patient is in a state of iron overload. Despite the fact that their iron level might be low or their ferritin level might be low, you're not looking at the big picture. The liver is one of the first things to go. Our liver is a master organ. He even helps with your immune system. If he's not working, there is a problem. And iron will cause destruction. And fat around the liver will cause destruction. And when that liver is not working, we have problems. We have chronic diseases. And we call them diabetes. And we call them cognitive decline, like Alzheimer's or MS or heart disease or whatever the disease is that you give a name for it. They give a code and you have a diagnosis. When all of it is essentially related to your metabolic dysfunction going on in your body. And some doctors will call metabolic dysfunction completely insulin problem, insulin resistance. I can't quite get on board and be a reductionist person like that, although I do believe that is one of the causes. But then you're not looking at some of the other causes, like iron, like low copper, like microplastics, smoking, drinking, alcohol, all of the, no sleep, no exercise. All of these things go into, I am going to, hold please. That is what I am going to do. Very good. We have to have, we're going to actually get a moderator here pretty soon because we have riffraff over there on YouTube. You Instagrammers are really, you're good. Okay. 9GP says iron should almost never be supplemented, or otherwise stated, iron should never be supplemented. Never ever. Do not give iron supplementation because you're just using synthetic fortified iron, which is causing more of your problems. You are actually adding to your dysfunctional body, making it worse. But my doctor told me to. Why? Well, they told me my hemoglobin's low. Why? What is wrong with your hemoglobin? Look at your red blood cells. What is wrong with your red blood cells? Red blood cells carry hemoglobin. What is wrong with your red blood cells? You need to look into it. You don't just take iron. Yes, we need iron. Your body needs iron, a constant supply really on a daily basis. But iron that we can use. You don't need 100 milligrams of iron in your body. You might need 5 milligrams in your body. And it gets recycled and reused, but it needs to have a constant supply of iron. And the best iron is heme iron. It is about 30% absorbable. It's great. It's easier to use. And the likelihood of it getting trapped in organs is much less because you're using it. And so, no, you should never give yourself synthetic iron. You should maybe change your diet. Get rid of synthetic non-heme iron. Well, what's that? All processed foods. And all processed foods come from plants. So just eliminating plants will eliminate non-heme iron. Eggs have a little bit of non-heme iron. They're okay. They're okay. But your ruminant meats, your ruminant red meats, have heme iron. And they're heme iron is very good for you. Okay? So, yes, red meat. Amber says red meats and organ meats. Yes, very good point. Rolex says eating green leafy vegetables should help. Really? What does that help with, Rolex? Because green leafy vegetables are full of non-heme iron. You are poisoning yourself with the exact same thing that you have a problem with. And your green leafy vegetables that you probably have not cooked, they're raw, have oxalates in them and phytates. And those are anti-nutrients. And those block the absorption of B vitamins and calcium and magnesium and selenium and zinc and copper. Imagine that. And what about amino acids from eating the green leafy vegetables? Okay? You are consuming things that actually are a detriment to you. Now, if you told me that you cooked the green leafy vegetables, you boiled them for 20 minutes, could you get rid of the phytates and oxalates? Yes, you could lower them, which would make it healthier. Rolex says, I was taught that in high school because that's what you were taught. That was an agenda for you to eat or consume green leafy vegetables. But what if the agenda when teaching the schools and the nutritionists and the doctors is to maintain a state of dishealth, no health? Why? Because if I fed you full of non-heme iron on a constant basis and you got nutrient deprived, you're eventually going to become sick. And then you go to the doctor, and the doctor does a diagnostic test and then makes a diagnosis and then gives you treatment. And then they will tell you to continue to consume the very things that caused the disease. Because I told you that viruses and bacteria and parasites and fungi all consume iron and sugar and certain amino acids. So were they really all in cahoots, or are they just plain not using their brain? And that's why you guys are all here, is you're thinking of the possibilities. What are the possibilities that in order to maintain sickness in people is to tell them that they should eat 6 servings of grains, their fruits and vegetables, and put meat at the bottom of the pyramid. At the top. Don't eat meat. Don't eat animals. If you eat animals, you're going to eat saturated fat. And saturated fat, when consumed, is somehow going to go from your mouth, down your throat, and into your heart arteries only, bypassing all of the metabolic pathways that break down fat. I mean, they counted on you guys to be dumb. But because of the cognitive dissonance and the radicalization, I'm going to call it radicalization. If I got everybody into thinking groupthink or being in a tribe, humans love to be in a tribe, and it's a tribal script. It's the us versus them. You plant people and you animal people, and which are the healthiest? That's tribal. You conservatives and you Republicans and Democrats, it's division. It's a way to divide you. And because humans love to be in a tribe, they love to be in groupthink, we're all going to follow who we follow because they groupthink just like us. I was in groupthink. I was being fed only one scenario. You eat saturated fat and you will get a heart attack. Then it changed from saturated fat raises LDL. And if you have high LDL, you'll get a heart attack. Then it wasn't so much the LDL. Now it's ApoB. It's a protein on the LDL. And if you have all ApoB, then you are going to have a heart attack. Yeah, but doctor, isn't ApoB on all LDLs? Well, yeah, but it's ApoB is the main thing that we should be checking for. And then we kick the can a little bit further and it's LP little a, some tiny little dense particle that causes coronary artery disease. But yet, if you were to check all the people who have a heart attack and you check their LP little a, you're going to tell me that everybody who has the heart attack has high LP little a? And did every person who have a heart attack have high ApoB? Did every person who have a heart attack have high LDL? And the answer is no. But you know what? 60% of them did have diabetes or prediabetes or hyperinsulinemia or insulin resistance. That seems like a more common denominator than LDL or simply eating a steak. But if I want you sick and I want to feed viruses and bacteria and fungi and parasites in your body, I'm going to give you foods that are higher in iron. And the iron is going to be synthetic. And then I'm going to tell you to take prenatal vitamins or multivitamins full of synthetic iron. I'm going to tell you these things. And you, doctor, and you, nutritionist, and everybody out there on social media is learning groupthink. Eat fruits and vegetables. Well, fruits cause high fructose levels, and fructose causes fatty liver, and fatty liver strangles out your liver, the master organ. Why would you eat fruit? Well, because it's got good things in it, nutrients, as opposed to what? Did you forget about the anti-nutrients in the plant? You're not a koala bear. You're not a cow. How do we fatten up cows? Oh, we give them grains. We give them corn. But I'm not a cow. But you eat what a cow eats and you get what a cow gets. I wonder if we were to check the cow for insulin resistance, how many would have it? I believe that we are not, we're not using our brains because we've been radicalized and divided. And people out there, and you might blame your doctor. I mean, you could blame your doctor because they really are held at a higher standard, right? They really should use their brain, but we don't. Because if we actually used our brain and stepped out of the matrix, we're not going to follow guidelines anymore, are we? And if you don't follow guidelines, doctor, you're out. or you're sued or whatever. Whatever the consequences is for you being naughty, for not following the program, doctor. So are doctors the cause? Could you get mad at your doctor? They don't give a crap, Ola, about you. They might have a little bit of empathy. They might be so brainwashed that they actually think that their metformin prescription is in your best interest because they diagnosed you and they know exactly how to treat you. And it feels so good. It's like a warm and fuzzy dopamine hit. I can heal them. No, you can't. Healing them by giving them a medicine to a band-aid their problem, their high iron, their insulin resistance, their sugar-laden diet, their fatty liver, their fructose, because they were told that fructose and fruit were good for you. And when I can't get you to eat fruit because you really don't like it, it's like a waste, I'm going to give you high fructose corn syrup, which is a really good dopamine hit. It's groupthink. They're isolating you. They don't want me talking to you to get your brain to open up. Even if I'm wrong, I've got your brain to open up. And you start thinking of the possibilities. But they don't want that. They want to isolate you. So they're going to try to suppress people who do talking outside of their guidelines, outside of their box. You guys, maybe because you're listening to me, aren't in that. You're starting to jump out of the matrix. But think of the people who they've isolated and got them into an echo chamber. You only hear certain things, medical school, this, nutrition school, this, media. And then if somebody falls out of the matrix, they silence them. Silence. It's a technique because their words are working. Some of you are getting out of the matrix. You're starting to think, yeah, that was dumb, that I believe that you could just eat fat off a steak and it would go directly to my arteries like it clogged a pipe. I mean, who would believe something like that? You would have to bypass the fact that it actually went down into our gut, right? And then was emulsified, broken down by bile, which is secreted by the liver if it's healthy. And it emulsifies it. And then the fat goods transports into a chylomicron, and then the chylomicron travels up the thoracic duct from the lymphatics through the lymphatic system, and then gets into the bloodstream. And then may or may not cause a problem, if in fact it ever did. Because they didn't teach the doctors what saturated fat was good for. They only told you what it's bad for. It causes a heart attack. It'll cause plaque and more plaque and more plaque. As if, I don't know. So the media is very good, carefully curating the information that they want you to know. And because it's in such a manipulative way, it gets you coming back for more. That's what they're good at. This is psychological warfare, you guys. And you came here for health purposes and trying to learn. I'm just trying to get you guys' brains to open up. You were blessed with an amazing brain, but we never use it. You allow people just to tell you what to do, and you take it as written in stone. Like, well, if they said it, they got letters behind their name. They're a doctor. They spent $200,000 to get educated. Right, we did. At least I did. I can't speak for everybody else. I spent $200,000 to get educated the way they wanted to educate me. I never once got a way to use my brain. I never said, I wonder if. I mean, is that possible? What if? They suppress that. They feed you so fast with the information they want you, and then they test you on it. And all you think about, because you want to pass the test, is to memorize what they told you, and you regurgitate it. You guys are doing it now. You'll do it to your friends. You'll tell them how dumb they are for eating steak and butter. You're going to have a heart attack. How? Tell me the process. Tell me the process. Because if you really broke it down, you would say, yeah, but I've been reading. And it's those small, dense LDLs that are really, really bad. Okay, tell me more. How do you get small, dense LDLs? Oh, well, that's a good question. They told us it was saturated fat. Oh, really? Well, I thought saturated fat made big, giant LDLs. And it was carbohydrates that made small, dense LDLs. What is a small, dense LDL? It's one that's lost its inner contents. It's because it doesn't have as much fat and cholesterol around its membrane, it can be oxidized. 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 You can have rusting in your body. Well, what causes oxidation? What about sugar? What about polyunsaturated fatty acids? We haven't talked about those yet today. Well, what are those? Seed oils, omega-6, polyunsaturated fatty acids in the form of seed oils that they told you were good for you? Why were they good for you? Because they lowered LDL. Well, which LDLs? Doesn't matter. We just need them all low. You mean we don't need LDLs? Nope, we don't need any. They do no job in our body. That's odd. I thought LDLs helped with our immune system and helped with our hormone production. Well, see how you guys weren't even using your brain when they told you to do something. Yeah, but I didn't have the power to look it up. Okay, but now you do, right? You do have the power to look it up. We need to jump out of an environment where we're being radicalized and divided. So we're not isolated. So we're not in an echo chamber. So we don't feel like we have to be tribal. And I know what it feels like to be left out. And, you say, gosh, everybody else believes that heart disease is caused by steak and we shouldn't eat steak. But you have to decide for yourself, are you going to use your own thinking cap? Or are you just going to go along with groupthink? And you're just going to be called, you're just going to die of old age and you're going to have diseases. And you're going to believe that as you age, you're going to have diseases. And then you have to prepare yourself, because if you do jump out of that tribal script, you're going to be silenced. When you really come down to it and you think about it, when we divide people, we see the division way out here. Okay, way out here. This is the extreme here, and this is the extreme here. This is called fringe, the fringes. But yet our mind goes to the fringes, okay? LDL causes heart disease. LDL does not cause heart disease. But what about all of these people in the middle? What about all of the people in the middle that could say, wow, that was a great point. You see, those people in the middle really just want the same thing. They want health and safety, and they want their kids to grow up big and strong, and they want a roof over their head, and they want food in their refrigerator. These middle people really want, and that's the majority, but yet we are talking about the fringes. If heart disease is caused by LDL, all LDL, then everybody who has high LDL would be having a heart attack. That is a reductionist, radicalized point of view. But if you break it down further and say it's only small, dense LDLs, your doctor would say, okay, let's say it's small, dense LDLs. What is the treatment to lower LDL? Because if you lower LDL, you're going to lower all of the LDLs. The big fluffy kind, the medium, intermediate, dense ones, the low density, small dense ones, all of them. One medicine lowers them all. Yeah, but we just saved you. Well, what raised the bad guys? Carbohydrates. That's why you have diabetes. What's the number one cause of heart disease? Diabetes, insulin resistance, high small LDLs. Lady says, advice for MS, low carb diet. Low carb diet. Yep, Daniel, McDonald's is good for you. Keep eating it, bud. Keep eating it. Happy Saturday there, Dr. B. I appreciate you being here. You don't have to be here, you know. You're doing that out of, you know, Dr. B's down in Florida. Dr. B is internal medicine, and he works to help people from a natural perspective get back their health. J.M. Minnick says, I recently sent my husband your copper reel. He was so intrigued. Could drinking a copper water bottle help with copper deficiency? That is a great question. I don't know how much leaches out of a water bottle or out of a copper cup, you know, when you drink a mule. I don't know how much copper is coming in. There have been people who study copper. That's all they do is study copper. There are people who only study iron. There are people who only study fat cells. There are people who only study insulin resistance. This is a difficult, I'm taking on a difficult thing because I'm trying to like talk about it all and weigh possibilities and just get my brain to think. And when I get my brain to ask questions, I'm asking them out loud to hopefully get you to ask questions. If you were to ask a studier of copper, what is the dose of copper that you should have in your body? Or what is a dose that you should get on a daily basis? Some copper experts would say around 2 milligrams. But if you look at some of the foods, like let's just eggs, one egg might have, please don't quote me on this, might have micrograms, like 0.004 micrograms of a milligram of copper, when our body might need 2 milligrams. That's 2,000 micrograms, and you're getting 0.04, 0.004, whatever it is. It would be hard to get enough copper in a standard American diet. It's even harder if you're on, you know, a meat-only diet or a carnivore-based diet, or how about this, a low-carb diet. You would need to consume organ meats. Organ meats would put you in the right, but some people say, you know what, I'm just not gonna eat the organ meats. Well, then they'll take a capsule. I'm not gonna do that either. I'd rather just take copper. Then maybe you get 2 milligrams a day of copper bisglycinate. But again, this is not medical advice. And before you go and take any supplement, you should get your levels checked. Why not just check your levels? My doctor won't do it. Order them online. If you can't order them, your doctor won't order them, and you need a doctor to order them to get a little bit of a discount, email me. I don't charge you for that. You want your labs checked, you tell me what you want, I'll order them for you. I'll send you like a little Amazon cart. It's not Amazon, it's another lab. I'll send you a cart of labs, and you pick and choose what you want. You just tell me, doctor, just give me what you think is best, but I want my copper level checked. I want my B12 level checked, my vitamin D. Ooh, be careful with that one. Did you guys watch my reel on the vitamin D? Be very careful on our vitamin Ds. How much vitamin D do we really need? Okay, which one are we measuring? Stored vitamin D or the active vitamin D? We got to know. Okay, maybe there's a ratio that you need to maintain of active to stored. Maybe that ratio is 2 to 1. We need to be very careful before we just go and take vitamin D. Vitamin D, what does that do to copper? Makes it inactive. And then if we don't have any copper, what does that do to iron being overloaded into our liver? Increases it. Now we got iron overload. Now we got trapped iron. Now we can't get it out because hepcidin is high. Hepcidin is high, which makes ferroportin not work. Now we just lost our transport. Now we got it stuck inside of our liver. Well, how are we going to get it out? Oh, they told you just to dump blood. So you're going to dump blood expecting it to come out of your organs and into the bloodstream? I mean, how's that going to work? If there's no ferroportin, How are you going to get the bad non-heme iron out of your organs and into the bloodstream? So what you're dumping out is heme iron in your bloodstream. Isn't that the kind we want to keep? Yes, it is. The heme iron. The absorbable, usable kind that is made, that makes up hemoglobin, that carries oxygen to our brain to get it to work. Yes, that heme iron. So dumping blood isn't going to fix your trapped iron. Oh, I'm going to do one of those fancy chelators. Okay. Let's see how that does for you. Before you take a medicine, did you look at all the pros and the cons? Did you get informed consent? Did you hear about all the positives and all of the negatives? That's very important. I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer. But there are people who study iron, and there are people who study copper. And there are people who study vitamin D, and insulin, and diabetes, and heart disease. But I don't think that we have the facts straight. I really don't. I don't think I've had the facts straight. Much of my family medicine career. Maybe I'm getting the facts straighter now after the past 4 or 5 years, but I still don't think it's straight. I'm still learning. Virginia asks, is it good to cook in a cast iron skillet? Absolutely not. That's leaching non-heme iron into your body, and then it's getting trapped. Trapped iron, like Mag says, you can't see it in your blood. And the people who are not educated to look at everything, like the MCV and your liver function and the your iron, transferrin, TIBC, all of those things, the ferritin level, they're just maybe looking at your ferritin and your hemoglobin, when ferritin could be going up simply because you're so inflamed in your whole body. These are things to talk about. I know, Virginia, no one knew that. In fact, I'll be honest, 5 years ago, I was using a cast iron pan. I was. And then I gave that up and I went to like an earth, like a potting. I know, Happy Gardener, I'm confused. You're confused? I get it. That's why we just continue to educate ourselves. Even I'm still confused. Because all of these pathways that we really never looked into, people aren't talking about biology and physiology and the natural processes in our body. We've been told by naturopaths, I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing, okay? Told that if we do a blood test and you're low on vitamin D, take vitamin D. But who says what is low and not low? Like, what is low? What is not low? Well, if your stored vitamin D is 100, you're safe. Well, not so fast, because stored iron not all stored iron converts to active, not all stored vitamin D is an active form of vitamin D. Well, who cares if it's a stored form? I want to know what active form is. So you could have 100 of stored and 25 of active, or even less. And really, the optimal level of active vitamin D should be around 45. And the optimal level of stored vitamin D should be around 21. And that perfect ratio is 2 to 1. 2 active form to 1 inactive. Studies have shown that 2 to 1, studies have shown. That's one of my favorite things to say. Studies have shown. Have you looked at them? Nope. No. I don't know who did the studies. I don't even know if I trust the studies anymore. I don't. I watch a lot of people, and they may or may not have done any studies, but over time, I accumulate so much information, and you'll start to find yourself going, nuh-uh, You can't just go dump blood and get rid of your non-heme iron. Nuh-uh. You can't fix hemochromatosis that way. Not if it's trapped in organs. Yeah, but it gets my hemoglobin down. You're treating a number, your hemoglobin number. But you didn't help the problem. It's the same way that people, doctors, whatever, don't take into consideration combinations of vitamins and minerals and hormones. For instance, do we really study calcium and magnesium? Do we really study calcium, magnesium, and vitamin D? I mean, should we really take calcium with vitamin D? Is calcium really for building bone matrix? Do we study copper and iron? I talked about that today. Do we really study sodium and potassium? Do we really study vitamin A and vitamin D? Well, now you're throwing me for a loop. Exactly, because no one is really studying these combinations. We're loosey-goosey checking labs, and rightly so, but they're not putting it into context. So your selenium level's low, here's your selenium supplement. Your zinc level is low, here's your zinc. I mean, even during the virus epidemic, they told you to take high vitamin C, high vitamin D, and high zinc. But in all reality, this triad of high C, high D, high zinc is the triad that kills copper. And I told you that if copper is low or you suppress copper, iron is going to rise in the liver. And if you raise iron in the liver, your glutathione production goes down. So they also told you to take glutathione. Now, granted, all of these are synthetic. They're not human made in your own body. They're synthetic. So, remember what happened? Or you might not remember this, but this is all coming. If I give you the high dose vitamin C and the high dose vitamin D and the high dose zinc, and that is a perfect triad to suppress copper. And then when I suppress copper, I increase liver iron. What is the result? And they talked about this. The really sick people with COVID, what did they get? They got something called a cytokine storm. What fuels a cytokine storm? Could it be that if I gave all of these things to you and a cytokine storm occurred, could it be, I'm throwing it out there, could that be iron coming out of the tissues and into the bloodstream? It was all locked up. They knew it was locked up. They fed you formula since day one. They told you to eat green leafy vegetables. They told you not to eat meat. And if you do eat meat, the meat you should choose is the ones that don't have heme iron. Chicken, fish, poultry, pork. I don't know. My head just, it spins with all of these things. And do I know the answer? No. But I'm just bringing these things up because who's they? I don't even know, Alexis. Where are we getting groupthink? Mag says it's media, it's schools, it's the government, it's 3-letter agencies. Are they all in cahoots? Can they all be in cahoots? it seems a little impossible, right? How could you get that many people involved in the group think? But you can. I mean, it seems impossible. It seems like that's out there, that you could actually convince that many groups of people. But if I give you an incentive, if I give you sex, power, and money, I could probably convince you guys to do anything. Because we are all sinners. Even believers in Jesus Christ as their Savior is a sinner. And they work daily on perfection, right? Trying to be just like Jesus. That's our goal as a believer. But we're still sinners. And we're just trying to make our way. And we make our way by being stronger and closer to Jesus than the world. That is my goal. And maybe I should share that with you more. But the world, whoever they are, is not of God. If they were, and they're a believer, their relationship is very far removed. Very far removed. And they might have convinced themselves that they need a savior. But in all reality, they are their own savior. And they can save you. That is a big red flag, is when somebody says, I can save you. No, you can't. No, you can't. There's one savior. No, I can save myself. Go for it. Let me see what happened, let's just watch. If that's what you want to believe, believe it. Okay? Is that the truth? No. There's only one truth. There's either truth or there's not truth. There's no in between. It's not true for you and not true for me. There is no such thing. True is true in every scenario. Not true is not true in every scenario. Okay. Radicalization and division. Sex, power, and money. All right. You guys, we'll come back to this. You guys really got into it and started asking a lot of questions. Brock, is it Brock? Hopefully, yeah. I agree that as we progress and as we get closer and closer to end times, to the end time, this will all get worse. And if you are familiar with your Bible, then it doesn't take any stretch of the imagination to see these things happening, and things are eroding. And things are not the same like they were for your grandparents or my grandparents. They are not the same. The world is more blatant now. The world is more blatant as far as radicalization and division is concerned. They want people on the fringes, and they want to ruin the thought process of everybody in the middle. They don't want you to use your brain. The minute you start using your brain, they cannot control you. Okay? And that is your goal, is to continue to educate yourself and think outside the box. Echo chambers and groupthinks and tribal, and it all sounds warm and cuddly and kumbaya-ish, but it's up to you. Okay? It's up to you. So we will be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. 10 a.m. Central. I do lives on Saturday and Sunday. If you need your labs ordered and your doctor won't do it, just email me at IronLadyDoc@AOL.com. IRON, so iron, lady, doesn't have any relationship to the iron, copper, or liver, or whatever. Okay, so IronLadyDoc@AOL.com. Email me if you want a consult. Email me if you want to have me order your labs, and tell me what you want ordered, okay? All right, so this is good. We had a good day today. Hopefully you guys learned a lot, but we will see you tomorrow. So you guys have a blessed Saturday. See ya.